Hello, and welcome to the Blue Shadow Podcast. My name is Joey.
I am Dan.
And today we're going to do something a little different from what we have been. We are going to make a tier list of all the Star Wars shows that have released on Disney Plus since it has started. Before we do that, though, I do want to start with our usual introduction of, we like to say what we've been playing, watching, or reading. What have you been up to, Dan?
Well, if you've been listening, you've known that I've been watching The West Wing with my girlfriend, and we finished it, all 7 seasons of it. So it was pretty good. Highly recommend. It is a political show. Surprisingly relevant, some of the things that happen. So go check it out if you want. It's a good show. A lot of big actors have small roles.
The guest stars make me want to watch it alone.
Yeah, it's worth it.
You have me intrigued. Not typically something that I would watch, I think, but you've got me definitely interested.
Yeah, and then we keeping in the political theme, we started watching Veep. Different speed.
That is huge on my list.
It's funny watching one to the other because they address a lot of the same things and you'll hear the same words, but just
different approach.
Just the way one's a lot more stylized, the other's a lot more realistic and funny as it's supposed to be.
I'm a massive Arrested Development fan, so seeing Tony Hale in any situation I feel like would be good.
Yeah.
You think I would like it?
I think so. I think it is. They do play to the politics a little bit as the show is supposed to. Yeah. But it's pretty funny.
Well, that might skyrocket top of my list. But you've been telling me to watch Ted Lasso, which is also on my list. So
I'm not gonna lie, I've been telling Joey to watch Ted Lasso for so long. I forgot that I told him to watch it.
I think you might have told me to watch Ted Lasso like the second we met.
Probably not the second. I'm not that
that day, like within that first week.
Oh
maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is almost 2 years ago.
A year and 10 months.
A long time.
As I've found out today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've been, still chugging them through the X-Men animated series, trying to get that finished with my wife, because she hadn't watched it before we dive into X-Men 97, which is slightly, I'm ready, itching to watch it, but I think we'll be glad we watched it. Yeah. The original series. And then I did finally start getting back into the High Republic book that I'm reading. It's actually the second one, and it focuses on Vernestra Rowe, who's going to be in the Acolyte. So that's really all I've been up to these days. But with that, are you ready to hop into our Disney Plus show tier list?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Speaking of the Acolyte, the reason we're doing this tier list today is because, as you know, the Acolyte releases next week, and we wanted to take a step back and look at what are the other Disney Plus shows, and how do they rank for us?
Mm-hmm. And I was intrigued, like really looking back, there has been so much stuff they've done.
There is, looking at 16 projects we're going to be ranking today.
Yeah, and I have a few rules that I want to discuss before we dive in.
Making it sound like it's going to get aggressive.
The first rule is that these are only shows that have released on Disney Plus. So this does avoid me talking about Star Wars Rebels for 3 hours and making this the longest episode we've ever done.
Yes.
So you won't see the first 6 seasons of the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, anything that wasn't officially released on Disney Plus is not going to show up on this list.
Correct.
Obviously, Star Wars Rebels would be on the top for me.
I know.
I feel the need to say it. Anyway, we have a few tiers. If you're watching visually, you can see we have favorites, we have great, we have very good, just okay, not my cup of blue milk, and haven't watched it yet. And then the other limitation that Dan very cleverly placed on us is that we could only, when we're making our initial assignments, and we'll talk about the format in a second, when we're making our initial assignments, we can only put 3 projects in each category, which really limited us and actually forced us, who are generally very positive people, to not just put everything in favorite and make it the world's most boring tier list.
Yes.
The format that we're going to follow is Dan and I have each independently made our own versions of this tier list. Mm-hmm. We're going to go through the projects chronologically, and then as they were released.
Yes. And
then kind of talk about where I put it, where he put it, and average it out and kind of settle on where we're leaving it. And then towards the end, we're gonna clean it up a little, make sure everything's kind of in the order that we want, and make sure that it's actually reflective of our thoughts. Mm-hmm. And then what are we going to do with it, Dan?
Oh. I'm so sorry. Yes, we are going to compare it to an average. So preparing for this, I went on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and got the average scores of each project and certain seasons. And I did that. I chose those two because it's both critic and user generated, and there are differences between them, some pretty stark differences. And I did it that way too to kind of counteract the Star Wars community, which is generally pretty negative.
It's a little chaotic.
Some projects had, on Rotten Tomatoes especially, had very, very high critic scores and very, very low user scores.
I can imagine what this might be.
So that's why I did it. That's why I added IMDb to the mix. And we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Broadening the data is always good. So before we start, I do want to say one last little disclaimer is we've stretched things out. So like The Mandalorian won't just be one thing. It'll be The Mandalorian Season 1, Mandalorian Season 2, Mandalorian Season 3. So every season released on Disney Plus gets its own little, representation here. Yes. So we want to start out here with The Mandalorian Season 1. Where did you have that, Dan? And why?
Mandalorian Season 1, I had it at great.
All right, why?
It was different. It was very new to Star Wars. It introduced new characters. And I like that. It was refreshing to get a new story. And they did it so well. But it's great. I think it was great. It was new. Almost every episode was pretty good. Very few complaints. How about you?
I had Mandalorian Season 1 as favorite.
Ooh.
Mandalorian Season 1 for me marked a very special time. It was when The Rise of Skywalker was coming out. Fallen Order released right around the same time. And it's despite these three massive Star Wars projects coming out all at the same time, it was so unique and refreshing. All the reasons that you said, new characters, new setting, new everything. But what bumped it up into favorite for me was the introduction of Grogu.
Yes.
I know he's everywhere now, and he's like, he's on every bed sheet.
The child. He wasn't even Grogu at the time.
The child. Not Baby Yoda, as they would be happy to remind you. But he was so unique and so novel at the time. I don't think I ever would have came up with this idea if you gave me 100 story ideas.
Oh, yeah.
And they really pitched it as, it's this lone bounty hunter making his way through the underworld in the galaxy. And I was like, oh, I don't really know if I'm that excited for this. Like, it was amongst those three things that released all around the same time. It was my least anticipated.
Well, they did a great job of not tipping their hand.
Which
I think...
Amazing that they did that.
Yeah.
And it was the first thing released on Disney Plus. So they really... I think they struck gold right away.
They knew they had to. Say what you want about Kathleen Kennedy and whatever she's doing. She knew that whatever was the first one released had to be a winner. And the people she brought in, of Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, that was going to be a home run.
I mean...
They swung for the fences on the first pitch, and they knocked it out of the park.
Fantastically. So, given that, though, we have it between favorite and great.
I'll concede favorite.
Okay. I like that. And again, we will be smoothing this out at the end, or as we go along and think, if that's a little too high, we'll knock it down.
It's dynamic.
It is dynamic. Quite dynamic.
Yeah.
As all things should be.
So that brings us to one that I think a lot of people have very strong opinions on. Clone Wars Season 7. Joey, where did you have that?
I have that as great.
Interesting.
I really loved this. I loved the Clone Wars. It was one of my favorite Star Wars things. I think we've talked about this before. I didn't watch it as it was airing.
Neither did I.
I watched it around when The Force Awakens came out, kind of, and I was sad to see it kind of just trailed off because they had canceled it after Disney acquired Lucasfilm. Yeah. And it did just kind of end very abruptly. And it didn't seem like everything was closed. And, they had the animatics and everything. But for me, Season 7 was fantastic. But when I think of Season 7, I really only remember the latter part of it. Like,
that's fair.
I don't dislike the Trace and Rafa stuff. In fact, I actually really like it.
We've talked about it. I would not hate a show based on them. I want to see them. I want to see I think they would be a great look into why the general public became disillusioned by the Jedi. And I would, not to bring Marvel into it, much like Captain Marvel, I feel like they were just introduced at the wrong time.
Yes.
And we were supposed to care about these characters in a time where we knew what was going on. Like, we knew how Clone Wars was going to end.
Yeah, and like this arc was actively getting in the way of like I want to see Maul.
Yes.
Where's Maul? And like I don't like I think this is a wonderful arc of TV, but I don't know that it in the limited space they had. Like that's what's holding it back from favorite for me. But I could concede favorite on it. But
I put it as favorite, mainly because, like you said, the last 5 episodes were fantastic, and also what it's led to. Season 7 of the Clone Wars led to the Bad Batch show in its entirety.
Yes,
and
I agree. At the time, I didn't care about it.
I agree, and at the time, I felt the same way. Like the Martez sisters are getting in the way of what I want to see. But now I think I still don't like the placement. I get why they did it. They wanted to break it up, but I still really like it. I could watch season 7 every year, every week. I don't know.
I think. And again, we talked about skewing positive.
Yeah.
I think not only are we starting out with some truly fantastic things, I think I can concede favorite on that, right?
Yeah, I think the favorite and great are going to be very dynamic.
I agree.
I feel like we may have the same 6 or 7 in the top 2. It's just figuring out where they go.
Now that's going to be tricky. Maybe some yelling. But that...
Not for me. I learned my lesson.
After that Marvel episode.
I yelled one time, and I'm just never allowed to live it down.
I yell at Dan more off air than on air.
That's fair.
Anyway, that brings us to our next season series. That's Mandalorian Season 2. Where did you place that, Dan?
I had that in favorite. I think that was my favorite season, The Mandalorian. That just so many things about that. Heavy hitter after heavy hitter. And the Mandalorian episodes themselves that focused on him were great. And then you throw in Ahsoka. Nice. And then who can forget the finale? I mean, if The Mandalorian ended right there, I would have been so happy. I would have been like, that's perfect finale.
I don't know about happy, but content.
Content. It would not be like me watching The Sopranos. And spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. It's not my favorite ending. It's very...
I don't like ambiguity in endings either.
Well, that's not ambiguous. You just have to pay attention.
Yeah.
But I digress. How about you? What about Mandalorian?
I also had that in favorite. Yeah, and I think that then would secure this above the other two because we had kind of disagreed on it a little bit.
Yeah.
That, for me, the Mandalorian Season 1 was very independent. You could have watched, like, your girlfriend, not being a Star Wars fan, could pick up Mandalorian Season 1 and I think generally be, like, pretty okay with it, plot-wise.
Yeah.
Maybe you miss out on this alien appeared here and that.
Well, I didn't watch Rebels before I watched Mandalorian Season 1.
I think you'd be okay with that, right?
The only thing I was confused about was the Darksaber.
Yeah, that was probably quite confusing. I guess I didn't think about that.
Then, as you can imagine, I watched Rebels immediately.
And you're like, this is going to be important. Then you were in for more of a treat than you probably thought you were.
Yeah.
But this, for me, was such a slow build-up from being relatively disconnected to, oh my god, it's Ahsoka, to, oh my god, it's Luke Skywalker. And let's not skip Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, Luke Skywalker was kind of the... Yeah. No. Bo-Katan, Boba Fett. Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, Boba Fett, Luke Skywalker.
There's so much in that season that we're forgetting.
Oh, I know. And like, that's just to speak to the characters that showed up. The actual story related fantastic. To the Mandalorian itself is fantastic. So I think that... I agree with you that it is, in fact... I think the strongest season of The Mandalorian, and I love it for that.
I agree. And that leads us to our first season of The Bad Batch, which debuted in 2021. Can you believe that?
That is long ago.
So, how about it?
The ranking for this is strictly because of the limitation we placed on ourselves for the 3 in each tier. This, for me, is in the just okay tier.
Oh, me too.
Really?
Yeah.
I think this... may I elaborate? I feel like, for me, if you've at all listened to our Bad Batch coverage in any way, we both were very, excited about it this season. They made you care about these characters. And the reason that I think that is through like the increased personal connection with Omega and, building out each character to not just be a caricature.
Yeah.
And this season, I was like, okay, I'll watch it, whatever. And I think on a rewatch, I might, put this higher, but...
And I'll concede that's what they did. But I think that was the purpose. They need... Good shows make you care. And a lot of great shows that you and I both like. We both like Parks and Rec and The Office.
Mm-hmm.
Season 1 of both of those shows were,
Yeah.
But you for all these shows where you develop a personal connection to the characters, you have to be introduced to them.
Mm-hmm. You need time.
You need to see who they were in that. Once you see who they are in the beginning, you can see how they grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like kind of what you talked about, season 3, the Bad Batch, you could see the character growth from season 1. Not discounting season 1, but it just makes season 3 different than season 1.
And it's like they were planting the seeds.
Yes.
And that's kind of the takeaway for me with that is like, it's great, but for me, it just kind of settled in just okay.
Yeah.
Anything else out on Bad Batch season 1?
No.
All right. For me, that, and just to summarize where we are so far, we have in favorites Mandalorian season 2, season 1, and the Clone Wars season 7. And then in just okay is Bad Batch season 1, which brings us next to Star Wars Visions season 1. Where do you have that, Daniel?
This might be the hot take. I haven't been very good.
I have that in Not My Cup of Blue Milk.
That's fair.
I loved some of them. I did not really care for some of them.
And that's fair. But the reason I have it in very good is the premise. It's so different. And you get these people, these creators, and Lucasfilm gave them creative freedom to do whatever they wanted. And it was so refreshing to see such an interesting take on the galaxy we've loved so much, and how, but I also think we get complacent with it. We start to expect certain things. Mm-hmm. For example, that's why I think some of the sequel trilogies isn't as well received, because the expectations were different than the product presented to them.
Mm-hmm.
So going into a show with no expectations allowed me to just enjoy it. And I really did. Like you said, some episodes are better than others.
Ninth Jedi is just, that I would watch an entire show, movie, whatever, based on that concept.
Yes.
And the one, like The Village Bride, was amazing. I may have placed season 1 higher if it weren't for the limitation on the stuff. So do we want to... Where did you have that placed?
I didn't very good. Do we put it in just okay for the time being?
Let's put it in just okay. But I will be very open to moving that up. Let's just put it in very good.
Let's put it in just okay. Let's be dynamic. Let's be dynamic with it. That way we'll have to make more decisions.
In front of or behind Bad Batch season 1?
Behind. I'll concede that.
We'll see. I feel like we might just move everything up to favorites at the end.
Nope. Rules. Okay, so from Vision Season 1, we get The Book of Boba Fett.
This is one where I imagine the ratings are all over the place. Yes. We'll talk about later. For me, I put that in great. Book of Boba Fett for me was much like, and then I've talked on end about how much I love the sequel trilogy, but it did come with me with, as you said, like you go in with your expectations, you watch videos or theorize yourself with what's coming. With this, I just let go of what I thought this might be. Not only did I get a really interesting story on Tatooine with Boba Fett, and I kind of wish there was more of that. I feel like Boba Fett was not in Boba Fett show enough, but we're also gifted with some of the best Star Wars that's ever graced the screen in this show. You get to see Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka interact in a scene with Grogu.
Yeah.
That alone, seeing Luke Skywalker wield his green lightsaber again, seeing Luke's temple, and you're going to say, Joey, you're not talking about Boba Fett.
Yeah.
But I will stop.
And for that very reason, I have it in Not My Cup of Blue Milk. I wanted a show on Boba Fett.
You got?
No, I didn't. I got Mandalorian season 2.5.
That was 2 episodes.
Was it?
And then he was in the last one.
And Grogu and Grogu, Ahsoka, Luke. That's all Mando 2.5.
I don't disagree that elements here should have been placed in Mandalorian season 3, and I think it does Mandalorian season 3, as we might talk about in a little bit of a disservice. Mm-hmm. But
But
Just think about those moments.
I know,
and your
but-
feelings when you saw those moments.
But I wanted Boba Fett.
Yoda's lightsaber was in this show.
In a show that's called The Book of Boba Fett, I could do without seeing Yoda's lightsaber. I'm sorry. It's just not...
I mean, you're not wrong.
That's just not what I was...
At least you're not complaining about the colorful motorcycles.
No, talking about expectations. I'm sorry. This one, Book of Boba Fett, I wanted more Boba Fett.
I don't think you're wrong.
It's not that I didn't like... It's not that I disliked the show. I don't dislike any of the shows on this list.
Uh-huh.
I need that to be clear.
I think that is a good little nuance.
It's not my cup of blue milk because it's not the Book of Boba Fett. It's the book of people.
Boba Fett and then everyone else.
No. It's everyone else,
Boba
then
Fett,
Boba Fett. Boba Fett wasn't even the main character in its own
Boba Fett
show.
was the main character for the first several episodes. Then they kind of veer off track, and then they come back to Boba. So you did get a lot of Boba. You got what happened to him after Return of the Jedi, his time with the Tuskens. You got him establishing his control on Tatooine. Then, we kind of...
I wanted more. I'm sorry.
And that's okay. So I have great. You have not my cup of blue milk. We can skew positive into very good, or we can skew on the negative end and just okay.
Put it in very good, only because I don't have... My issues of why I have it so low are not with the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's how the story was presented and what I wanted. And this, I will say, I'm biased. I want my expectations. I wanted them to be met, and they weren't for this one.
And I think that's interesting because for me, I said, for me to really embrace this, I had to say, I'm just letting go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm letting go. I mean, I just really think about that. When the Disney Plus show is released in the morning, we're on the East Coast, so they release it 3 a.m. for us. And I had to, gently wake my wife up to watch them with me. I will never forget that feeling of like, oh my God, what am I watching? Mandalorian's wielding the Darksaber.
Yeah.
But your point stands. My fondest memories of this show are the Mandalorian part.
Also, can we just, as an aside, as the Parks and Rec fan, can we just mention Patton Oswalt's filibuster in Parks and Rec? He called this. The writers called this.
Yeah, he did.
Which
have you ever watched the unabridged version?
We watched. So I watched it in my AP Gov class.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because we were learning about like the Senate and all how that works, and we talked about filibusters. And my teacher brought it up. She's like, Parks and Rec did a great one on this, and how just nonsensical it can be.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can talk about anything.
I remember them someone read a story to their kid.
Yeah, and that's also mentioned. They talk about filibusters in West Wing, where they do something similar. So. Neither here nor there.
West Wing tier list.
So
Danny Trejo is the Rancor Keeper. We'll leave this in very good and then move on to the next thing, which is... am I or you introducing this?
You are, because I just did Boba Fett.
All right. That brings us to Obi-Wan Kenobi. What do you think of that, Dan?
Not my cup of blue milk.
Okay. This one for me is... I'm going to say my piece, and then I want you to... I'm just going to say where I have it.
Yeah.
And then I want to hear your thing. So for me, this one is at the mercy of everything above it being so good.
Yeah.
Or me loving it so much. I put it in very good.
Interesting.
So go ahead, you, and then I'll share my thoughts.
I don't know what I was expecting with it. But it kind of goes back to, I want a show about Obi-Wan, not Reva.
It's not about her.
But they made it about her.
I think it's... if you looked at like the airtime, Obi-Wan got the vast majority. It's not like Obi-Wan's story was sidelined for Reva's.
It's unfortunately the biggest thing. It was kind of forgettable. There are very specific scenes that I remember from Obi-Wan. For example, we watched Darth Vader force choke some kid on the street.
Yeah.
Which was crazy. I gasped at that audibly. But it's just a little forgettable. Like, now that I'm talking about it, I'm starting to remember all the events that happened, but I can't...
I mean, all the interactions with little Leia.
Know.
That for me, little Leia, like, again, talk about subverting expectations. Not nearly as much as Grogu, but I was so not expecting young Leia to be in the show. I have no problems with Obi-Wan leaving Tatooine. I have no problems with any of that. It was just I was so excited by that. for me, the Fallen Order connection to the Fortress Inquisitorius was amazing, and having all the Inquisitors as a Rebels fan was really exciting.
There are a lot of things about the show I really enjoyed. And again, I don't dislike Obi-Wan Kenobi. If there was a second season, sign me up. I'd watch it in a heartbeat. I compared to the other, like kind of like you said, compared to the things on the list, it has it low. I'd be willing to put it in very good though.
I'll take that.
Where'd you have it in great?
I had it in very good.
I'd put it in very good.
Before or after Boba Fett?
We put before.
Okay. And again, we'll clean this up a little. But for me, this is one of the shows that kind of felt like a bloated movie to me. And that's
it. Like, I would have preferred this to be a movie.
I completely agree. And I think it was at the whim of that. And like some of the episodes, like if you think about The Mandalorian, Ahsoka was kind of good at this, kind of not. But like the episode itself is contained in every other series. In this, it's kind of like you hit pause on the movie and then went and did a bunch of stuff, and then you came back.
Yeah.
And I will give you that. But also, we have such the moments for me, and the story and the lessons that come from it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we're not putting in Just Okay, and why I feel like I'm passionate about this show, but
I conceded. Again, I'm not saying it wasn't a very good show. It's just, for me, it wasn't my cup of blue milk.
It's like, this one's really frustrating for me. Not at you, just in general, because it's like, everything about this show on paper should have been, why is this not in favorite?
Yeah.
But it's like some of the execution stuff, like the visual effects don't bother me whatsoever. Like,
no.
Whatever, who cares? But it's I don't know.
I feel like speaking from this show, we get a lot more one scene remembrance, like one scene sticking out instead of storylines for me.
Like, and you're right. Like, for me, I got the lessons, like what they're trying to say, and like moving past trauma and all the like the importance. Like, you get out of it what you need. Mm-hmm. But you're right though. This, like, I remember when I think about the show, the biggest memory for me is Obi-Wan talking to little Leia about Padme and Anakin. That's like the most memorable part of the show to me.
And we're completely neglecting. We haven't mentioned it. The Darth Vader fight and that whole scene.
And like for me, this honestly came out at a very hectic time in my life. It was like as I was, things were starting to not quite work in grad school. Mm-hmm. I was getting married in September. This came out in like the springtime. So things were kind of hectic. I feel like I need a good Obi-Wan rewatch.
Yeah,
maybe we can talk about it. Maybe we can do that and talk about it.
Again, I didn't dislike the show. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a very good show.
I could see a situation where this either gets moved down or Boba Fett. We'll talk. So just to summarize before Dan introduces our next show, should be a fun one. We have in favorites Mando 1, Mando 2, Clone Wars Season 7. In favorites, and very good, we have Obi-Wan Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett. And just okay, we have Bad Batch Season 1 and Visions.
Yes.
Vision Season 1.
Yes. So that leads us to Tales of the Jedi. What did you think about Tales of the Jedi? Where is that on here?
Was that next?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. I'm so sorry. Skipped one. Andor.
Oh, I wish this was one that I had to do so you could give it first. For me, this is going to surprise absolutely no one if you've heard me talk about Andor before. Not my cup of blue milk.
I know.
I thought it was good. It was very, very good. I enjoyed it. Like, it just, to me, my favorite parts of Star Wars are, like, the big life lessons and the magic of the Force and, like, lightsabers and Jedi. And this scratches the itch for Star Wars, without a doubt. But it just, it for me, is just not, it doesn't have everything I want in a Star Wars.
No.
So that's why it's not my cup of blue milk.
That's fair. I, on the other hand, had it in great. But you know me, I love Rogue One. I love gritty shows. That's the type of TV I watch. And this is the closest thing I'll get to that in Star Wars.
I think you're not wrong. I mean, like
I think I know it's fictional, but I think the rebellion often gets overlooked, and we think of Luke Skywalker coming in to save the day and being the hero of the rebellion. And I think Andor is showing us that it's not necessarily true. There are so many other people who get overlooked.
I don't think you're wrong at all, and I think this is an important look into that. Like, Nimic is a great example of someone who's important in the rebellion, but in concept, but in actuality didn't really do much for the rebellion, if that makes sense. Like, much in action, but in spirit did like more than like clearly it's like going to getting the Death Star plans.
Yeah.
For me, Andor, I just it felt so disconnected. Like I hated that. Like whenever you see a TIE fighter for the first time, it's like it's a big deal. Yeah. Like it felt. I know it's not made by Star Wars. Like I think Tony Gilroy is famously not a Star Wars fan, and I know they've talked about season 2 starting to connect a little more to the rest of the saga, and I think it'll be good, and I might enjoy season 2 a little more if it gets a little more connected.
Yeah.
So with that, you had it in great. I had it in not my cup of blue milk. I could concede very good because I can see why someone would really like this.
I won't fight you on that one.
Before Obi-Wan, probably.
Yeah.
I think
objectively,
it is a better show.
Was a better show, and I think that's kind of what we have to take into account.
I think when it's all said and done, critically, we might be able to move that up to great, but
we'll see.
So that puts Andor at very good, and that brings us to Tales of the Jedi.
Yes.
Which I put in, and again, this is another one that I feel bad about because it's lower than I might like it because of our limitation. But this is the point of having that limitation. Yeah. It really forces us to put what we really love. I have this in very... Oh, you're supposed to go first. But I have this in very good. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I had this in favorite.
Unsurprising.
I think the reason I have it in favorite is it took two characters. One character who was very, very important to Star Wars, current Star Wars, in Ahsoka, and gave her a backstory that we've all kind of been, ever since Clone Wars Season 7, where we really see Ahsoka take off and flourish into what she becomes in Rebels. I think it was great seeing a backstory. And then the Inquisitor fight. Sweet.
Mm-hmm. I read the Ahsoka book, and it's like cooler than I imagined it.
Yeah. Seeing
it in person with the cool bird mask.
Mm-hmm. And then Count Dooku, I think again, we've mentioned before, he's a very nuanced character. And I think I really enjoyed how they paralleled it. You had this, you even said Mother of the Force. Like,
okay.
Daughter.
Hey, we'll talk about that when we talk about Ahsoka.
We've seen... We got to see these two different people both rise to the Jedi ranks, and just the disparity. Is that
and they both leave. They follow similar paths,
just diverging paths, but not really diverging. If that makes sense.
Like one skews one way, one skews another, but it is the same path.
Yes.
And if you're new to listening to us, Dan's favorite character is Count Dooku.
Very nuanced.
That when I met Dan,
Doc Brown said he's a visionary.
He is a visionary, so some say. But when I met Dan, he said Count Dooku is my favorite Star Wars character, and I was like, yeah, I think this guy's going to be my friend. I would happily concede to putting that in anything above.
Let's put it in great for now.
I think that's fair.
I think my personal bias skewed it towards favorite. I will admit that.
Then wait till we get to a certain other series. I thought it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. It was... as I said, I can't sit here and say about Andor, I wish I had the Jedi and then put something that has the Jedi in it lower than it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it gave me everything I wanted. Star Wars animation is phenomenal. I'm just really excited about that show.
Yes.
That brings us to our next thing, which is Bad Batch Season 2. I think I messed it up again.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. I'll do 2 then.
Okay, I like that. You go ahead. Tell us your thoughts on Bad Batch Season 2.
I had it's just okay. It's, again, kind of forgettable. Apart from the season finale. Kind of forgettable.
Tech watch.
I know.
Tech still life.
Spawned our favorite segment, but...
I also have it in just okay. And for me, I like it better than Season 1.
Me too. In my rankings, it is to the left. We're doing where left is better than right. It is... In my just okay, it is the furthest to the left. I'll put it that way.
Okay. So I completely agree. It again, though, like, we wouldn't... I anticipate that we'll have Season 3 higher than these two. We'll talk about that when we get there.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, I wouldn't love the conclusion if this didn't build them up so well. But and there was a lot of individual moments that are wonderful, but it's the downtime in the show that allows you to get attached to the characters that also... sometimes the individual bigger story, it was kind of frustrating with this.
Mm-hmm.
Doing stuff for Sid, who
Yeah.
we knew was a terrible character from the beginning.
Right.
It was frustrating, I feel like.
I agree.
So we can settle that in Just Okay.
Yeah.
Currently, let's do a little recap here. At Just Okay, we have Bad Batch Season 2, then Bad Batch Season 1, then Visions. What do you think about that?
That's fair.
Do you want to move anything around there?
Not right now.
Okay. Then moving up and very good, we have Andor, Kenobi, and Book of Boba Fett. In great, we have Tales of the Jedi. And then in favorites, we have Mandalorian Season 2, Mandalorian Season 1, and The Clone Wars Season 7. Now you may introduce the next.
So that
two
brings
shows.
us to Mandalorian Season 3. Joey, where did you have Mandalorian Season 3?
So this one's complicated. I love this season. I think the season has some of the wackiest, most zany Star Wars fun in it.
Mm-hmm.
You do things that I was not expecting. Like we go to Mandalorian, like one of the first. Is it the first episode?
Yeah.
Like it just. This did a lot of unexpected things. And there's a lot of individual things that are cool, like seeing the Anzellans. As a huge Red Skywalker fan, I was hoping it was Boba Fett, but it's okay. Having an Anzellan is close enough for me. But I really liked it. Lizzo's in it. I know it's a little controversial now, but I really enjoy Lizzo's music, so that was exciting at the time to see that. But all the stuff on Mandalore, Moff Gideon, getting the mention of Thrawn, and seeing more about the Empire that could potentially lead into the First Order. All this stuff is fantastic. But this is a long-winded way for me to say I have it in very good.
Oh, I have it in Just Okay.
You might be able to convince me to put it there. Go ahead.
And it kind of falls back into the same reason I had Book of Boba Fett. There's kind of just a lot going on. But I don't know if it's... There's kind of just a lot going on. Almost... I don't know.
The word that comes to mind is kind of messy.
Yes. I don't want to say it's incohesive because they bridged everything together. But it's like you said, they go to Mandalore in the first episode. And I'm like, that's it?
We're here already?
Like, I thought this whole season was going to be getting to Mandalore. I mean, as we know what happened in Rebels with Mandalore, and we know that the Siege of Mandalore happens, and I'm like, what is it? The Purge of Mandalore?
I think the Siege.
Siege is with Maul. I thought with
Siege is with Maul.
Purge. Was it Purge?
Purge, or like the Night of 1,000 Tears or something.
That. I don't know. It was. I don't know. I thought it was just okay. Like, I'm struggling to think. There's a lot of good parts of it.
Like the Kelleran back.
Yeah.
Good part.
Cool.
Really cool.
Really sweet.
You know what I think the problem with this is? I think we should have had half a season of Mando being without Grogu.
Yes.
Having scenes with Grogu.
And this goes back to Book of Boba Fett. They cut out from my boy, and then they had all this open space, and now it's like, okay. Well.
It just, I think, messy is one word, awkward is another. Yeah. It felt like they built up slowly all this to this choice. Mm-hmm. And I totally am for Grogu picking Mando. I think it makes a lot of sense with the story that they're setting.
I agree.
But it does leave this to feel a little bit like, imagine if you didn't watch Book of Boba Fett and you'd like, you were probably like, what?
Yeah.
What? So I honestly would be okay putting that in Just Okay.
Again, don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed it. Paz Vizsla.
Oh.
Going out like a champ.
I will put that in ahead of everything that we have there, though, if that's okay with you.
That's fair. What's in there?
We have that. We have Mandalorian Season 3, Bad Batch Season 1, or Bad Batch Season 2, then Bad Batch Season 1, then Visions.
Okay, 1. So we're going to have to...
We're gonna we'll finish, then we'll go.
Okay, so you good on that one?
Yeah, I'm totally good.
So then the next one that would have been next release order is Young Jedi Adventures, which we both said we haven't watched yet.
Yeah, and I've seen bits and pieces, like the little shorts, and it's cute, and God willing, one day I'll have kids and show it to them, but it's cool to see the High Republic visually. Mm-hmm. It's just, I mean, it's not my cup of blue milk.
Yeah.
Because it's not like I watched it and it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
It's just not crossed our radar.
Yes.
I will say, if you are watching the visual component of this, we have kind of cut off on the bottom of the list, and we see haven't watched it yet getting cut off. We're just going to let that be. Mm-hmm. And because all the important stuff's on there that you can see. Yeah. But yeah, Young Jedi Adventures, I love that they're making it. It makes me happy that there is an early entry point for Star Wars fans to introduce their children or younger people to it.
Yeah.
But Anything else to add on that?
No, but that then brings us to... We're getting pretty recent here.
Yeah, no, this is...
this brings us to...
23, I think, right?
Vision Season 2. Where did you have Vision Season 2?
Not my cup of blue milk once again. I think this, for me, was... I liked it less than the first season. I thought that there were high points, like I Am Your Mother. I just loved that. I thought it was so good.
Interesting comment about that one.
I can't wait to hear it. But for me, I liked that there was a unified style to the first one. Mm-hmm. This one is kind of, I mean, they've opened it up to creators from all over the world, which is really cool to see. Mm-hmm. But it was a little jarring.
Different styles of animation. Speaking to that point, I did not sit down and watch these in a row. Uh-huh. Because of that, I'd watch it. So when I go to the gym, I'd put on Visions 2 mm-hmm. and use that when I'm on the stair climber. Yeah. It's the perfect amount of time.
It is.
But in that same vein, I have it not my cup of blue milk.
All right. And is that the first one we've agreed on? Like,
no, we had
Mando 1, I think.
Or no, we
Mando
had
2.
Mando 2, and then
anyway,
one of the Bad Batches.
Yeah, this is the first one. This is the first and maybe the only one on this list that was like, I feel like I'm working to put this in. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah. Anything else to add on it? What about how I Am Your Mother? You had a comment.
Critically, one of the lower rated episodes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That was what was the highest rated one?
I don't remember. I'm sorry. I didn't write it down.
That's okay. The one that I really did not like was, I forget what it's called, but the one where like the kid is leading her friends and she clearly has a force, and then like the Sith.
Yeah.
I did not like that.
Yeah.
For me, that, I know they have the creative license to do whatever they want with this, and it's not canon or anything, but like that to me goes like against all of like the mm-hmm. George Lucas lessons of like choosing to do the right thing and everything. And granted, if we got a story about it, it might end that way. But for me, it was kind of tricky.
Yeah.
To really like, I don't know. That kind of left a weird taste in my mouth for Visions 2. Nothing in Visions 1 did that for me.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe it like skewed my view of it. Maybe I need to revisit it, but yeah. This then brings us to a show that just released at the end of last year, and that is Ahsoka.
Great.
You have it in great? Why do you think?
Why? I think we're transitioning to the new era of Star Wars, and this is the first step in that direction, kind of on its own. Mm-hmm. Everything is bridging from Mandalorian at this point, and I think it will all converge again. But I mean, the World Between Worlds, mm-hmm. the Thrawn, Ezra, Sabine, great, fantastic, loved it. And this is where my bias might come in of why I had Tales of the Jedi higher than it.
On that note, I will say this is for me favorite.
I know.
Star Wars Rebels is my favorite.
I know.
And this is the Rebels sequel minus Zeb for some godforsaken reason.
Also Zeb in The Mandalorian.
Why? Why was he in there and not here?
I know.
And anyway, we could seriously do a whole episode on that, and I'd just scream into the microphone. I mean, we could go in my car and be like those people who like sit in the car and make angry videos about Kathleen Kennedy. But this is about why Zeb wasn't in Ahsoka.
Yes.
I'm sure they'll have a story reason in the future. You don't just introduce Zeb and then leave that dangling.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll all be smoothed over. But mm-hmm. Anyway, Ahsoka, Rebels part aside, it did feel like the Book of Boba Fett felt like we were playing in the same like zip code as The Mandalorian. This takes the era that The Mandalorian is in, and it really does push it in a totally new direction. But at the same time, it draws back to characters that we know and love. And one of the most exciting things for me was seeing characters translate from a book to animation, or a book to live action, or from animation to live action, or vice versa. Like even seeing Morgan Elspeth in Tales of the Empire, which we're going to end up talking about shortly, that was really cool to me. Mm-hmm. So seeing that, but on this scale, I was a little resistant even for Sabine and Hera specifically. I don't know why Ezra worked for me immediately, but with him on his Fondi.
Because it's Ezra.
He knocked it out of the park. But Sabine and Hera, after like the first episode, I was like, this is everything that I could possibly want it to be.
Yeah.
Seeing, and I talked about how Sorry, can you tell I'm getting excited?
Oh,
and
yeah.
I had a large coffee before we did this. But I love the craziness of Star Wars, the lightsabers, the world between worlds, the Purgo, all of this being in live action, Night Sisters,
Yeah.
a whole other galaxy. This is what I come to Star Wars for, and it is just my favorite thing that they have released. Definitely since The Rise of Skywalker, it might even overtake it. And Chopper?
Yeah.
Anyway, I love that they made Chopper's voice almost like more expressive. Anyway, so I have this in favorite. You have it in great.
Yeah.
What are we thinking?
What do we have at the moment?
Currently in favorites, we have Mando Season 2, Mando Season 1, and Clone Wars Season 7. And in great, we have Tales of the Jedi.
I'd be willing to put it in favorite if you bump Mando Season 1 to great.
I'm good with that. And then we can... Where are we putting that in order? Let's do it now.
I'd say you put Mando Season 2 first, Ahsoka, then the Clone Wars.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right. Whew. Sorry.
No?
I gotta cool down a minute.
That's fair.
I think I just yelled at the microphone. We have our microphones in little stands. I was about to take it out and start standing up and
I know. It was
rioting on the table.
It was going to be a sight. You could Joey's a very expressive talker, and he uses his hands. And they just started flailing.
I think they were in the air. Like,
yeah.
I look like someone just scored a field goal. Anyway.
Whew. Is that me?
Yeah.
So that brings us to 2024, Bad Batch Season 3. Joey, where did you have Bad Batch Season 3?
If you've listened, not only is this a wonderful show, this has a special place for me because it was what we started doing this podcast on. And I feel like getting to actually not just listen to people talk about it, but to actually really like dive in myself and really discuss it has made me only appreciate it more. So for that reason, and for every reason we've ever talked about, Crosshair, Omega, Hunter, everything, the twists and turns along the way, bringing Ventress back. It all gelled together, and in the way that, like, some of the problems you have with Book of Boba Fett, I think you could say some of the same things about Bad Batch Season 3, but they made it so integral to the story.
Yes, that
For me, it's great. I have it in great. And again, that's only because of the limitation.
I have it in very good, but
Okay.
it's my top very good.
Speak more, and then maybe we'll decide.
Speak more.
Speak more.
It's only in very good instead of higher, because I feel like it was a slow burn in seasons 1 and 2, and then they just lit the fuse real quick.
So then the question is, do we punish this season for the other season?
And quite frankly, I think the 6 shows I have above it are just better. I mean, if that's really... Because all the other shows above it we've talked about.
What do you have above it?
Clone Wars, Mando Season 1 and 2, Tales of the Jedi, Andor and Ahsoka.
Okay, so...
I think, like you said, it's just one of the ones that are punished by what's above it.
I personally like this more than Andor. But recognizing there's give and take here,
yeah,
I 100% think we could put it in... I had it in great, you had it in very good, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I think we could put it behind Andor. I mean, for me, I'd have Andor like 3.
I know.
3 lower. Again, it's very good, but...
And that's why I have it in very good.
Yes. It isn't... How about that? Yeah, so... that brings us... Do you have anything else you want to say about Bad Batch?
No, I mean, if you guys have listened to us, you heard all of my thoughts on it. If you haven't listened to us yet, you can go back and hear all of our thoughts on it. We had some interesting discussions.
I got a little unhinged about Tech still being alive, but it's okay.
Spoiler alert if you haven't watched it.
You were sweating there for a little.
No, I wasn't.
You were sweating.
I was steadfast in my belief.
You were sweating. It says buttons. Anyway, that brings us to the most recently released Star Wars project prior to the Acolyte, which maybe you have seen by the time you listen to this.
Yes.
But we will, as we talk about that and cover it, which we are planning to do, episode by episode or weekly at least. We have Tales of the Empire. What do you think about that, Dan?
I had that in very good. I think.
So, go ahead. Elaborate.
Go ahead. You had a very exacerbated reaction.
I'm frustrated with the rules that we set. But for me, I had it in just okay. I would put it higher.
But you can't.
But we can now. I couldn't.
I had it in very good. And the reason I had it in very good was we finally got more Barris stuff, which was... Barriss was one of those characters I expected to see 3 times prior to this.
Mm-hmm.
If she would have showed up earlier, I'd been like, oh, this is great. It makes total sense. And I feel like we got the Barriss story we knew we were going to get.
Mm-hmm.
Barriss ending up as an Inquisitor. We could have guessed that one. If there was no Tales of the Empire, I'd feel pretty confident saying if she wasn't dead, she ended up as an Inquisitor.
Mm-hmm.
But then we get Barriss back to the light.
Interesting. Very interesting. Not at all what I expected.
Me neither, and I think that's why it's so high.
Uh-huh.
But I also think that speaks to Barriss's character.
It just makes me wish that I could see more. I think it could have only served Rebels, for example, more to make her the second sister, or not the second sister. I'm sorry, the seventh sister. Or in I don't think she needed to be in the Ahsoka series. I think there was too much going on there for her. But maybe at the end of Clone Wars season 7, that would take the Inquisitor part away, but have her be the antagonist of the Trace and Rafa arc could have brought a little pizzazz to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just left me wanting more, which is not a reason to punish it.
Yeah, and then we get the whole Morgan story, which is great.
I really grew to love her in Ahsoka,
and I think the problems you had with Barriss and wanting more, I think, was the perfect amount of Morgan in Tales of the Empire.
I agree.
The perfect amount. You saw everything you needed to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like her story is very complete. And I know people are going to disagree with me. You could always go out and make more story from a character. But for the essential Star Wars fan, you have what you need. This is the Spark Notes filled to the best outline you can get of Morgan Elsbeth.
I agree. And seeing Thrawn and her connection, it really, both of these shorts, or these episodes, really filled out missing gaps in these characters' stories. And, I clearly would be okay putting it in. What did you have? Very good?
I'd
be okay putting it in very good.
Okay, let's put it in very good.
All right. So, I'm going to run... Anything else to add on Tales of the Empire?
No.
Loved it. Let's run through the list as we have it now.
Time to get...
And we're going to start cleaning up a little.
Time to cut.
Or boost. So... Currently, it would be nice to have a bell curve. We kind of do have a little bit of a bell curve going, but I'll read through it, and then we'll go line by line.
Yes.
Potentially moving things. So in favorites, we have Mandalorian Season 2, Ahsoka, Clone Wars Season 7. In great, we have Tales of the Jedi and Mandalorian Season 1. In very good, we have Andor, Bad Batch Season 3, Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, Tales of the Empire. In just okay, we have Mando Season 3, Bad Batch Season 2, Bad Batch Season 1, and Vision Season 1. And Not My Cup of Blue Milk, we have Vision Season 2. And then in Haven't Watched, we have Young Jedi Adventures.
Yes.
Starting with favorite, is there any...
I think it's the only one where we actually did it correct. So I think favorite, we can lock up. Are we okay with the order?
I'm good with the order.
I think so too. I think
as much as I love Ahsoka, I think structurally,
Mando season
story-wise, Mando Season 2 is as tight as it can get.
Yes,
for a streaming show.
I agree. I think I'm very comfortable saying that we hit that one on the head.
I'm pretty good with that.
But I feel like this is the last time we're going to be able to say that with confidence.
I know. Great. We have Tales of the Jedi, Mando Season 1. I could move Mando Season 1 above Tales of the Jedi.
I could do that.
You good with that?
Yeah.
Would you like to pull something from very good? Let's now go down to very good. We're not quite going to leave great yet because I think we could stand to add one there. Mm-hmm. In very good, we have Andor, Bad Batch Season 3, Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, and Tales of the Empire.
I know which one I would move up.
I feel like
you know which one it should be.
It really should be Andor.
It really should be Andor. Objectively, it was a great show.
It was great
TV.
Yes.
So it is my cup of blue milk, keeping in the theme. I enjoy shows like that, but objectively, it was a very good show.
It was. And I think you would have people who would switch in Ahsoka or put Ahsoka in Not My Cup of Blue Milk. So this is not by any means a definitive list. It's our personal list that we're kind of Frankensteining together in a very fun way. So that leaves us in very good with Bad Batch Season 3, which I do think is an appropriate top there. Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, and Tales of the Empire.
I was pretty strong on the last one, so I'll let you take the lead on this one.
I'm pretty happy with this.
One of them's got to go.
Where?
One of them has to go. Those are the rules.
What do you mean? Who made that a rule?
There's 4 of them.
No, that's okay for this. I thought that the 3 was just for
I
us.
thought we were keeping 3 of all of them.
No. Well, then I'd bump Tales of the Empire down.
I'm cool with that.
You good?
Yeah.
So I guess if we are sticking with the rules, I thought that was just for our private list, but I think it does make it spicier.
So now we really have to think. We were pretty. What's the word? Oh,
generous.
Kumbaya.
Yeah, we were kumbaya.
Now it's time to cut.
All right. So that leaves us with very good being. I guess to recap, and we already know what the favorites are. In great, we have Mando season 1, Tales of the Jedi, Andor. And very good, we have Bad Batch season 3, Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett. Are you happy with that order? You like Boba Fett more than Kenobi? You want to move Tales of the Empire up there, don't you?
No.
What do you want? You seem unhappy. Go ahead.
Boba Fett's a little. I think personally, a little bit of a reach.
What should go there before it?
I don't know. I think just in the very good. I think this is tough, but there's 4 of them, right?
Very good is done.
Oh,
technically.
Okay, so then what's just okay?
I'm asking you if very good's order is okay.
What's the order?
Bad Batch season 3, Kenobi, and Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
We can make some. In just okay now, we have some stuff pushed down. We have Tales of the Empire, Mandalorian season 3, Bad Batch season 2, Bad Batch season 1, and Vision season 1. I think Tales of the Empire stays where it is.
Tales of the Empire stays where it is. We're gonna have to bump one of the Bad Batches.
I think season 1 should go lower.
I agree.
It sucks putting it in Not My Cup of Blue Milk.
Well, maybe retroactively we can change this title. Or is that cheating?
We can retroactively change it.
Just
I can change it right now, live on the air. What do you want to call it?
I don't know. The other shows are just better.
You want to call the tier the other shows are just better? I'll do that.
And if you think that's a cop-out, I agree. But as you picked up, we're pretty positive.
We love Star Wars. I really think for the majority of these, if Dan didn't impose that rule, we would really have just...
I think the rule makes this...
interesting to watch.
Yeah.
We still have one more to bump down, though, before we're all said and done. I would pick Visions, but you had Visions higher, so I think that would be doing you a disservice.
I'll put Visions in other shows are just better if it's the first one.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
So let's just go through one more time and make sure that we're good. In favorites, we have Mandalorian Season 2, Ahsoka, Clone Wars Season 7.
Yes.
Good with that.
Yeah.
In great, we have Mando Season 1, Tales of the Jedi, and Andor.
Yep.
In very good, we have Bad Batch Season 3, Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett. I feel like Boba Fett's higher than you'd like it. But Andor's also higher than I'd like it.
I know. There's got to be
our compromise.
There's got to be consensus.
And I concede that Andor is a better show than Book of Boba Fett, so that's why it's higher.
Yeah.
In just okay, we have Tales of the Empire, Mando Season 3, Bad Batch Season 2. In the other shows are just better, we have Visions, Bad Batch Season 1, and Vision Season 2. And then in Haven't Watched, all by itself, is the Young Jedi Adventures. So that is our finalized list. Do you have any comments on this, Dan?
I do want to reiterate. I really enjoyed all these shows.
Me too.
I need that to be clear.
Except for Book of Boba Fett.
I like the show. I really did. I just wished it was more about the title.
I would love to see a second season of that.
I too really enjoy watching Clifford the Big Red Dog as it follows Arthur.
All right. I get what you're saying 100% though, which is why it's very good and not great. I'm intrigued though because it is, and we don't need to talk much more about it because we already spent a lot of time on it. But the disconnect between your and my thoughts on Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett is intriguing and maybe something we should tease apart further in the future. All right, with that is our finalized list here, and again, not definitive. It's the Blue Shadow list.
Yes. What
we're going to do now is we are going to take a look at how our list corresponds to the critical reception of these shows.
Okay, everybody. So now we are going to go... We talked about our rankings, our tier list. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, I compiled a list of general rankings from critics and audience scores and averaged them all out to see what's the general consensus tier list. So, starting off with a bang, do you want to take a guess, Joey? What starts off at number 1?
I'm going to go with Clone Wars Season 7.
That would be correct. Clone Wars Season 7. It had a 100% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, a 95% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and an 81% score on IMDb. So that totals us out to 92% out of 100. Pretty good. It's
understandable. Honestly, a little higher than I would have expected from the irrational portion of the fandom and the Trace Rafa stuff, but I think it's very well deserved for sure.
I agree.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that one?
No, I think it's incredibly appropriate.
Yeah.
I have nothing to yell about yet.
Do you want to guess what's number 2?
Andor.
It is not Andor.
Yay.
One more, and then I'm going to tell you the reveal.
Okay. Mando Season 2.
Reveal.
Tales of the Jedi.
Tales of the Jedi.
Tales of the Jedi. You were right. You had that in favorite.
Tales of the Jedi had a 100% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, a 93% audience score, and an 82 on IMDb, for a total of 91 2/3.
Wow.
Now, I will say, IMDb may have skewed it a little bit because there were only 6 episodes compared to the 12 of Clone Wars Season 7, so it did have a higher IMDb score. But, yeah, Tales of the Jedi comes in at number 2.
That's wild.
Any guesses for 3 now? Now that your whole world's been shaken.
I'm just going to keep saying it until it comes up. Andor.
It is not Andor.
Yay. Tell me, let's do the reveal. Tell me what it is.
It is Mando Season 2.
Okay, I'm good with that.
With an average score of 90.79.
That's very close.
Yeah.
These are all pretty close.
It was. And then the top couple are all pretty close. You'll see a gradual decrease.
Mm-hmm.
It had a 93% Rotten Tomato critic score, 91% audience score, and an 88% IMDb. So, not bad.
No, I think that's good.
It's about where we'd expect it to be. I expected Mando 2 to be top 3.
Mm-hmm. And it, these are honestly, like, if you are watching the video version of this, we have on the left side our list, and we're popping up on the right side the ranking from the critics and audience reactions. And the left side so far is pretty accurate.
Yeah. So, any guesses for 4? Are you
Andor?
Nope.
This is making me a little happy. I think this one might be Mando 1.
Good job.
Hey! We matched up here.
Not to spoiler anything, but this is the only one that matches up between our tier list and this tier list. Mm-hmm. Not tier list.
This is just straight up a list.
Yes. So, Mando Season 1 had an overall score of 89.875. So, if we're rounding up, 90. Rotten Tomato critic score was a 93. Audience score was a 92. And IMDb had this as an 85. So, this really kind of dropped it down in the rankings. But I'd say about Mando Season 1 would be about the 4th. And as we discussed earlier, it is.
It's kind of exciting.
Yeah. Any guesses for number 5?
I'm going to say something else. I'm going to say Bad Batch Season 3. It's Andor, isn't it? It's Andor. Of course it is. What else did it be?
It is Andor. Andor had a 96% Rotten Tomato critic score. However, it only had an 86% audience score and an 84% IMDb score. Averaging out for an 88.666. So, season top 5.
I'm getting a little worried, Dan.
I expected Andor to be in the top 5.
I honestly expected this to be higher, as you could tell. Yeah. The guessing part's going to be a lot more fun now.
And now we're completely in the world between worlds, as you say.
Yeah, I'm going to say.
Do you want a hint or no? You just make a guess. Throw something out there.
Bad Batch 3.
Good job.
That's it?
Bad Batch 3. Bad Batch 3 had an 84% average score out of 100. It had an 88% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, 84% on their audience score, and 80.1 on IMDb.
Okay.
It's about...
I think that's appropriate.
And what do we list that as? Very good or great?
I think great. I think.
What number is it on?
That's 7. So it would be just at the...
Very good.
Very good.
Very good. And that's about what it is. It's very good.
So this technically is actually higher than we have it.
It is.
Which is, kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Wishful thinking, Ahsoka.
Wishful thinking is wrong.
I had a feeling. Go ahead, tell me what it is.
It is a Bad Batch. Bad Batch Season 2 with an 84% overall. So this was probably the closest.
Mm-hmm.
This was 84. Bad Batch Season 3 was 84.0333.
Huh. This one surprises me a little. I again love the Bad Batch.
It had a higher critic score of 90%. The audience score on Rotten Tomatoes was the same with 84. However, it had a lower IMDb. It had a 78 compared to Season 3's 80.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm surprised by this. It was, I love the show, but for me, everything that's under this in the critical portion,
mm-hmm.
I think for me, I enjoyed more personally. Obviously, there's the Ahsoka factor, but a lot of other stuff. Mm-hmm. So interesting.
And I do want to mention, because we're not including overall scores in this, in the rankings, if we were including overall series rankings, Mandalorian would have been at number 6.
Wow. That tells me what I need to about 3.
Yeah.
All right. Let me guess with number 8. Ahsoka.
Wrong again.
Oh, no. Tell me.
Click it. Let's see it. I want to see your reaction.
Bad Batch Season 1?
Bad Batch Season 1.
What?
Had an overall average score of 82 out of 100. The Rotten Tomato critic score was an 86. Audience score was an 82. And IMDb was 79.
I'm getting a little worried, Dan.
You should be.
Again, great. We love all these shows, but this surprises me a little bit. And there are a lot of episodes too, so like that makes it harder, for it.
Yeah.
Oh,
what do you think comes next? What number are we at? I can't.
We're at 9 now.
What do we think is number 9?
Tales of the Empire?
Show me Tales of the Empire.
Vision Season 2?
Vision Season 2.
Dan warned me that this list was going to make me upset.
And it'll only get better. Vision Season 2 had an overall average score of 78.4. This might surprise you. It had a 100% Rotten Tomato critic score.
It beat Vision Season 1?
Had a 100% Rotten Tomatoes critic score.
Critic?
64% audience.
Okay.
And 71% IMDb.
I'm intrigued to see how those numbers play with Vision Season 1.
So, are we good on Vision Season 2?
Good is an interesting terminology.
Keep our guessing game going. What do we think's next?
Ahsoka?
Show me Ahsoka.
Oh, God. Vision Season 1?
For those of you... we don't have cameras yet. However, when Joey clicked it, he shot up out of his seat thinking it was Ahsoka.
Because the Ahsoka poster's kind of white-ish, and this poster's white.
It was not Ahsoka. It is Vision Season 1 with an overall score of 77.8%.
Oh, dear.
It had a 96% Rotten Tomato critic score. It's pretty good.
I mean, it was good. Can you read me the comparison of the scores for Season 2 and Season 1?
Yeah. So, you're doing the math?
No, go ahead.
So, Vision Season 2 had a 100% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes compared to Season 1's 96.
Mm-hmm.
Their audience scores, Vision Season 1 had a higher audience score of 68 compared to 64.
I'm not surprised. But
it had a lower IMDb score, though, as well. It had a 69 compared to Season 2's 71.
Interesting.
But these are, 8/10 of a point difference.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Okay, ready to keep going? Are you nervous?
I'm very nervous. I feel like this is going to make me angry.
What do we think's next?
I'm going to just say this just so I can say it, I guess, at once. Young Jedi Adventures.
Oh, that's twice now.
Hey! Thank God. I had this deep fear. I think I can rest easy the rest of this. I had this really deep fear that Young Jedi Adventures was going to be 16. Or I'm so sorry, that Ahsoka was going to be 16. And it was going to make me really sad.
No.
But I aggressively disagree with this.
Yes. So we finally get Ahsoka. Ahsoka only had an 86% critic score compared to the 69% audience score. But this one, IMDb really did split the difference, 75.
Okay. I
IMDb saved Ahsoka.
thank the Lord. I think one thing I will say is what surprises me about the audience score is like I think this show caters well to fans.
Yeah.
Specifically fans of the animation. So it doesn't surprise me, depending on who the critic is, that they might be like, this is lacking in certain areas because they wouldn't have the attachment to the character.
But the critic score was significantly
I
higher.
know. That's what's confusing me.
All those Sabine haters.
I think there's... I wonder, and this... Who knows? And I'm not making up excuses, but do you think that like the strike and the lack of promotion had anything to do with that?
No.
No?
I just think people's expectations were not met. You could say...
You know how I feel about meeting people's expectations.
I know. And I'm going to say what I always say. It's probably the same thing that happened to the sequels. You had the group of Rebels people who were like, yes, amazing. And then the people who didn't watch Rebels were like,
what is this?
This is dumb. What am I?
I will say, though, I think this matched with expectations more than the sequel trilogy did.
I agree.
Whatever.
At this point, you checked out.
I'm just going to... No, I'm not checked out. I think next for me is...
So you want to know what's left before we...
Yeah, remind me what's left, because we're getting lost in the sauce here.
Tales of the Empire,
Mm-hmm.
Mando Season 3, Young Jedi, Boba Fett, and Kenobi.
Kenobi's next.
Kenobi is next. Good job. And this was the biggest drop. There's a 5-point difference between Ahsoka and Kenobi.
Wow.
Yeah. So Kenobi had a 71.666 repeating out of 100 average score,
Mm-hmm.
had an 82% critic score, and only a 62% audience score. And then IMDb had it as a 71.
I have... Like, do you think that the people... Like,
do you think they're like review bombing it?
not review bombing, but I think much like with like a restaurant, like you might be more likely to go write a negative review
Yeah.
if you're like, this was terrible, then like that was okay. Either that was okay or that was really good.
But I'd argue the same people rating Kenobi are the same people rating Tales of the Jedi,
Likely.
which had it at 93.
And I think, as we've talked about, with the exception of Ahsoka, I think all the stuff that's falling lower on this list had some drawbacks.
Yeah.
And I recognize Ahsoka has drawbacks.
Yeah.
I have strong personal connection to it, though, which is why
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it's all subjective and everything.
Subjective.
Yeah. Okay, I thought I was losing my mind for a second.
No, you're right.
But yeah, no, I think there are flaws, and I think that this is calling them out.
Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised that Kenobi was not lower.
Yeah.
Based on the way that the discourse is online.
I agree.
I think that the next one is Book of Boba Fett.
You are incorrect. Well, kind of is.
Mandalorian Season 3.
Yeah.
I hit the button.
I know. I saw your face.
I think this is fair.
It had Mando Season 3 had a 71.125% and an 85% critics rating. And I'm going to skip this. It had a 77% IMDb rating.
Mm-hmm.
So you do some math. What do you think, if you were to guess, what's the audience score of Mando Season 3?
Oh, God. Read me this one more time.
85 and 77. And the average is out to 71.
What do I think that
What do you think the audience rated it as?
65?
51.
What? It wasn't that bad.
Listen, man, I'm just telling you what they have.
It wasn't that bad.
51.
Oh, dear God. I will say, again, I think if you match this list with our discussion, I think it does kind of vibe.
Yeah.
The thing that's not sitting well with me is the fact that we haven't talked about Tales of the Empire yet.
Well,
I'm going to throw that at 14 because I think it should be happening already.
Show me Tales of the Empire.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So Tales of the Empire had a 70 overall rating. And this is one of those things. It had a high critic score, relatively high IMDb, absolutely panned by the audience.
Why?
88 for critic score, 71 for IMDb, 51 for the audience.
This really surprises me. Did you happen to read any of why?
No, I'll double check.
No, I believe you wholeheartedly.
I want to make sure.
Okay.
But
And this is very intriguing to me. I feel like, again, though, based on what we talked about, with a few exceptions, it is...
Nope, 51%. I was right.
I wonder why. Could you go in and see maybe what, like... You think it's just people didn't care about Morgan? Or
It doesn't say.
That's okay. Boo. Boo on those people.
Yeah. Can't. It's a shame. So, last two.
What's left?
Boba Fett and Young Jedi.
I just gave Dan a look.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope that it's Boba Fett. I'm going to hit the button.
Go ahead.
Are you kidding me? It's Young Jedi Adventures.
So, Young Jedi Adventures has not been reviewed by Rotten Tomatoes critics.
Understandably.
However, it has an average score of 69. It has an IMDb score of 58. And a Rotten Tomato audience score of 80.
I mean, I wholeheartedly believe that it is as good as this is saying for what it is.
Yeah.
The people don't like the Book of Boba Fett, do they?
The people don't.
All right.
Nor do the critics.
Well, that takes us to number 16, which is the Book of Boba Fett. Would you like to enlighten us with what these numbers must be?
Yes. So overall, 63. By far the lowest. 6.5 and what? 5
and just to say, like the Clone Wars at the top was 92, right?
Yeah.
So we've went from 92 all the way down to 63.
Yeah. It's been pretty much dropping by a point. There's a clear hierarchy, and I'll reiterate that at the end. But 63 and 2/3. Rotten Tomatoes critic score of 66, by far the lowest.
Mm-hmm.
Audience score of 53 on the lower end. IMDb though 72. So
that's more where I would like.
Yeah.
If I put my critical hat on.
IMDb scored it higher than Visions 2, Visions 1, Kenobi, Mando Season 3. So, yeah.
I think this is highlighting some of the nuances, and I'm glad you pulled a lot of those different sources to get at this, because I think it could be skewed in different ways.
Right.
And I liked incorporating the audience and the critic. It's interesting, though, that, like, how those dials can change.
Yeah.
So overall, what do you think of this list? After having came up with hours, you knew this all going into it. I did not.
I was surprised. I was surprised by certain aspects of it.
I'm surprised Andor is not higher.
Me too. I thought Andor critically was higher. Then Andor, if we're ranking it, was tied for third. Mm-hmm. Tied for second, even.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't.
Any other thing specifically surprise you?
Vision Season 2 getting 100% critic rating.
I don't. I mean, again, it's good, and this is all the subjectivity. But I am surprised by that. I'm surprised by how low Tales of the Empire is.
Yeah,
that seemed to be more of an audience,
and it might
thing.
be because it's newer.
Yeah,
it really could be.
Honestly, the height of Tales of the Jedi is also surprising.
Tales of the Jedi, again, had 100% critic rating and a 93 audience rating. If it wasn't for IMDb, it would have been even... I mean, it would have been closer to the Clone Wars.
Wow, that's awesome. I feel like, though...
Well, they're about right.
It's kind of crazy. I feel like, though, as we looked at this, like, it was a kind of a gradual decline. Like, it wasn't, like... I feel like it wasn't as, like, clustered into groups. I feel like it was more...
Yeah.
Like, just kind of steadily downward.
What's the grading scale? Like, 92 to 100 is an A plus. I don't know. So the hierarchy was Clone Wars Season 7, Tales of the Jedi, and Mando Season 1 were all in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Mando Season 2, excuse me. Mando Season 1, Andor were high 80s, 89, 88 respectively. Then we kind of fluctuated around mid-80s with all the Bad Batch, 82 to 84. When Bad Batch as an overall, 83, right smack dab in the middle. And then Visions ranked closely to each other, 77 and 78, 77, 78 for 1 and 2 respectively. And Ahsoka right there, 76. And then we had another little drop off to Kenobi, Mando Season 3, Tales of the Empire, and Young Jedi between 69 and 71. And then our boy Boba Fett in a resounding last with a 63.
That's insane. That one is like...
I
I had a feeling it might be lower, but dear Lord, that's close. That's lower than you put it, and you were not as hot on it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I thought this was really interesting.
I agree. And I'm excited for next week.
Mm-hmm.
Acolyte.
I think at the end of the day, to really kind of bring this home, I think it shows that they really have done both a diverse... They've done a great job at introducing diverse content in the sense that we've got something for everyone, really. You've got the animation fans with tons of different things. We've got our live action stuff. For example, someone like you who's more of, like you like the nitty gritty, like Andor type show. Or me who has the space whales and lightsabers. Someone riding a space whale with lightsabers. All that wild stuff. I feel like it all kind of... There's something for everyone, and I think it speaks to the strength of Lucasfilm at the moment. And I know some people might disagree, but I think they're kind of firing on all cylinders right now.
They are. And I think they're going to hit the ground running next week, too.
Oh, I know. I think this is going to give... I think the Acolyte, and I might have said this before when we talked about the trailer, it's going to marry what you love about Andor with what I love about Ahsoka, and hopefully put it in one package is what it seems like. All wrapped in a mystery.
Show that they can do it, and hopefully use that format going forward.
Yeah, and potentially... I'm very excited, just to kind of wrap up on our thoughts pre-Acolyte, I'm very excited to, as much as I love the Skywalker saga, to leave it in live action.
It's good. It had its beginning. It's had, speaking of, I didn't see it in theaters. Did you, Phantom Menace?
Not this. No, I don't think I've ever seen it in theaters.
Me neither. But yeah, we got a distinct start, distinct end, maybe more than one, depending on who you ask.
There's one ending, and it's episode 9.
I know.
And I'm okay playing around in it. Like don't get me wrong. I love when we go back to that core.
But we don't need it fleshed out anymore, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong. I would love, which we're getting now, with what we're getting with Mandalorian, fusing 6 and 7. Fantastic. But I'm good leaving the movies where we are.
And I hope for a little while, the Galactic Civil War era, like just before that, like after Andor season 2 is done, like maybe we leave that for a little, and then when we come back to it, it'll feel like we're getting something we haven't done in a while. I think with the movies, everything's looking up. I don't think it ever was really down. Like your opinion aside, like they're putting stuff out. It's all you can really ask.
If it was down, they wouldn't be making more.
Exactly, and they're not. I know there was talk of like Lucasfilm and Marvel slowing down. Lucasfilm is not actually slowing down. I would say Lucasfilm has been making a steady stream. They kind of slowed down post-pandemic, if you looked at like the years and stuff. But yeah, no, I think it was really good, and I really enjoyed doing this.
Me too. We'll have to do more.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else to add?
No, I'm excited for next week.
Absolutely excited for the Acolyte. And with that, thank you so much for listening or watching. If you are watching on the podcast, feel free to take a look at our YouTube. We have some video stuff going up. There is a video version of this that we'll have added that has a lot of graphics that might make making listen to it easier. If you wanted to go take a look to kind of see where everything shook out at the end. Also, if you haven't yet, I did do a solo episode just last week. I reviewed Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in a very long-winded foray into my thoughts on the game. Spoiler alert, I loved it. With that, though, we thank you again for listening. Feel free to give us a subscription or a review on the podcast platform of your choice. And give us a follow on Twitter at Blue Shadow Pod and on Instagram at Blue Shadow Podcast, as well as take a look at our Facebook, which is Blue Shadow. With that, thank you so much for listening again, and we will see you next time.
Yes, one more thing. If you strongly either agree or disagree with us, please let us know. Yeah. We want to hear it.
Do you think I'm a crackpot for putting Ahsoka so high and Dan enabling me?
What can I say? I needed to give some concessions so I can slide my stuff in at the top.
There it is. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much again for listening, and we'll see you for the Acolyte next week.
See you next week.